Dear experts and participants, this is the end of the second session and the end of this journey in the realm of AI ethics. Thank you very much for your endeavor. And for the closing of this session, I would like to invite each spokesman to present the governance mechanisms that you've come up by reflecting on the use cases and scenarios. So we would like to know about 3 or 4 governance mechanisms that you think are appropriate to make the Charter applicable, implementable, and also to make sure that the principles are observed. So I will call maybe first, yes, you would like to present. Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good afternoon to everyone. So our use case is actually related to education, AI in education. And we have been given some scenario as well as some use cases related to education. And we found that based on the ethical principles that we have actually dig out, some of these governance mechanisms are being proposed. So the first one is actually we feel that it is very important for us to have an we call it as Islamic board multi-stakeholder participation. So for which it's a board, governance board that should consist not only on the Islamic scholars, but also the AI experts, AI developers, AI users, and so on, in that particular board to discuss, for example, to become the governing body, in order for them to make approval towards the AI applications being developed. So this kind of board could be set up. One is actually at international level. The second one, it can goes up to regional level. It can goes down to national level as well as the organizational level. So it looks like kind of an ethics research committee. For example, some of we have at the organization. So similar kind of ethics board should be there, in which that particular board is responsible to make approval towards any kind of development of new technology or whatsoever. So that is one of the aspects that we could have. The second one is for the board to develop a code of ethics, right? For example, so that the code of ethics could be referred to the AI developers, to the publics, and so on. And then that particular board, another mechanism that could have is actually to have an assessment tool. So for the board to have an assessment tool, so that they can validate and verify whether this is particularly an acceptable AI developments or not. Is the direction is acceptable or not? So that is one of the governance mechanism that we have. The second one is we should have a public policy and guidelines. First one is for the AI developers, and second one as for the users as well. So they should know that what is an acceptable AI applications that they could use. We also should have a training and awareness. This is also very important. The training and awareness is not only about using the tool, but also an exposure to them, to the public, as well as to all other organizations, for example, on how that they can use the tools effectively, how they should use these particular tools ethically. And the final one is actually looking at legal regulations. Okay, so this is where actually we should have regulations and legal regulations towards AI and data, and all these are 5 of our proposed governance mechanism. And the risk towards it. So, for example, if let's say we have a board, one of the potential risks that we could have from this ethical board is difficulty to reach the agreement because the technology is moving so fast. Sometimes the ideas come from different sects and different perspective. So sometimes you may lead to inconclusive agreement. Okay, you cannot reach the agreement itself. And then when we talk about having rules and so on and regulations, too many rules can kill the rules. So you may have ended up with superficial rules, or you may have ended up with a lots of gray areas which cannot be attended. So that is one of the risks that we could have by having this. We also look at the risk when we have associated with the assessment tools, for example. So sometimes it could be biased. The assessment could be biased. The assessment does not fit with the AI tools that have been developed, for example. So this is something that we have to look at. And most of other things, for example, another risk for the training is that the technology is moving so fast at exponential level, and there's a possibility of the training become obsolete. You know, for example, like you take one year to develop the training module. The next year, once you want to start to enroll it, and it's already obsolete. So this is where actually the risk associated with giving training and awareness. So what we propose here is that the most important thing for the publics, especially the citizens, the users, and so on, to be given the lifelong learning skills, so that they know they can learn at their own self. It's a self-paced learn. Okay, so they can upgrade themselves accordingly. And additionally, the last potential risk that could have by all this kind of governance and law and legal regulation is it restricted their creativity and innovation. So people feel restricted, people feel controlled. So when they are controlled, they do not want to innovate, or they are not creative enough. So those are actually our findings and our discussion. Thank you very much.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is Professor Sohail. Thank you very much. As I already explained the scenario, I'm not going through it again. It was just from the science and technology domain, where the multiple chips are actually implanted in the human body in order to have a proactive approach for early detection of medical issues and optimizing the medical interventions. So we came up with 5 ethical principles: privacy and security, human-centric, fairness and non-discrimination, integrating Islamic beliefs, and transparency and explainability. So these are the 5 ethical principles we identified related to this. Now, the task this afternoon was to actually, what would be the implementation mechanism or the frameworks for these 5. So I'll go one by one. So we had the Appendix 4 list. So we mapped our ethical principles to the Appendix 4 mechanism frameworks, which has already been given to us, and we added 1 or 2 in it. So the addition I'll explain separately. So first of all, the ethical principle was privacy and security. For privacy and security, the mechanism will be auditing mechanism first. Now, the auditing mechanism is not in the Appendix 4, so we are suggesting that there should be an auditing mechanism in that Appendix 4. The second thing is the code of conduct. So first you need to audit that there is a privacy breach. Once you determine the privacy breach, then you need to have a code of conduct. So code of conduct identifies that what could be the provisions in it, and then you go to the legal provisions. So there are 3 governing mechanisms for ethical principle, privacy, and security: auditing, code of conduct, and the legal. Now I move on to the second one. Second one was actually human-centric. So the ethical principle is human-centric. So how you will determine a framework in order to implement or in order to evaluate human-centric? We need to have AI assessment. for human-centric. So there should be an AI assessment mechanism, which has already been given in the Appendix 4. Now, this is a second-tier discussion that how you're going to actually develop that AI assessment. That's I think we need to have another session for governing mechanisms to actually develop those documents. But we are still now here identifying that we need to have AI assessments. And then the second thing is the mechanism for dispute resolution. That's the second governing framework we require for human-centric ethical principle. The third one is fairness and non-discrimination. So for fairness and non-discrimination, if we want to identify the fairness for the AI system needs to develop, we need to have participation mechanism. All the stakeholders should be involved in order to determine that the AI system we are going to develop is fair for that particular population. And the second one is mechanism for dispute resolution. What if the system is not fair to half of the population? Then you need to have a framework for dispute resolution. The fourth one is integrating Islamic beliefs. A lot of discussion we had in the first session, but still we agree that there should be an ethical principle, and that name is integrating Islamic belief. For that, you need to incorporate those beliefs in code of conduct, and then you also need the awareness, research, and training programs for that. So we call it ART, A-R-T, ART. Awareness, research, and training. So we combined the last three frameworks in the Appendix 4 to ART frameworks or the ART programs. So for that beliefs, you need to have the ART framework. Finally, the fifth and the last is the transparency and explainability. Again, in order to ensure transparency and explainability as an ethical principle, we need to have a framework for the awareness, training, and research. So these are the governing mechanisms we have identified for these 5 ethical principles. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum. So very quickly, because we're running out of time, I'm going to just put up a few governance mechanisms we have discussed. We discussed it against the ethical principle we proposed, but I'm going one ethical principle or multiple ethical principle actually maps to multiple governance mechanisms. So I'm just going to spell out the mechanisms. The first one is, of course, the policies, guidelines, and legal provisions together. We have to have this one. We have to have digital tools, mostly for capacity building and as an awareness program. We also want to have research programs, particularly to check the ethical issues, security issues, and readiness as well. We also wanted to have this AIS assessment. It's not really AI assessment, rather AI system assessment. And this is basically to check how aligned the AI system is with the policies and the guidelines. It can be at the ICESCO level as well as at the country level. And we wanted to propose one thing, that is a post-compliance or post-audit framework. So when we start something, we believe that many of the members, if not all, are in infancy or at least in early state. At this point, if we put too much pressure, we will not thrive. So we rather propose a post-compliance procedure. And we thought about something from the charter level. We propose a governing body with representatives from different regions. The terms of reference from the body would be to set, revise, and if needed to monitor the adherence to the policies and so on. And this will also help in capacity building. So some member states who are advanced, they will provide support to the member states that are not that advanced. So the governing body will look into this. And I will finish my speech just pointing out one question that we had during our conversation. This is, I think, very, very pertinent. What will be the case if some member state is not aligned to the charter of the ICESCO? Is there any punitive measures? Or is it like this is just a guideline, some will follow and some will not? So this is a question, we didn't have answer to it because the authority lies on the member countries, right? So this is a question that we need to discuss. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
So when it comes to our case, it is creative AI. And speakers before me have already mentioned several key important issues that must be done. And upon those, I can add only two of them when it comes to creative AI. So number one that we must always consider is censorship, because without censorship, there will be impossible. It will not be possible to implement any type of regulations. So number one, when it comes to creative AI, is censorship. And the second that our team has thought about is independent committees when it comes to generative AI. And independent committees must review every case one by one. In my personal opinion, independent committees must be formed out of people that are maybe not attached to AI technology. And the rest has been already mentioned by previous speakers, as I said. So thank you.